Stacey Abrams has conceded in the state of Georgia in the governor's race against Brian Kemp. Now, Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State overseeing the election as this election was taking place, and that was a giant conflict of interest, and he refused to recuse himself. Voters were disenfranchised, particularly African-American voters in the state of Georgia, and the race was incredibly close. It was a very tight race, and Stacey Abrams and her campaign, in addition to almost 3 dozen lawyers, were considering taking this case to court and fighting to prove that voters were disenfranchised and that there were too many irregularities and that there should be another vote on this. However, she has decided to acknowledge Brian Kemp and his win in the state of Georgia.
So I want to be clear about a couple of things here. The race was not as close as the ones in Florida. So if you're wondering, it was of course still incredibly close, but not as close to the ones. Why would that be contested? Because it wasn't how close Stacey Abrams was to Brian Kemp that's the issue. It's that if Brian Kemp went under 50% of the vote, in Georgia there's an automatic runoff. And he was so close to being under 50%. He was at 50.2. He was only 18,000 votes away from being under 50%. And he had done massive voter suppression. So as I was looking into Stacey Abrams' potential lawsuit, I was thinking the main thing is, can they use voter suppression as part of the argument, or can they not? Do they just have to rely on the malfunctioning machines and the long lines? And some people were told the wrong information about provisional ballots, et cetera. And it turns out you cannot use voter suppression. You have to only use the things that happen on that day. And it would have been very difficult to prove that there was 18,000 of those cases. And the other thing that would have happened is it would have dragged down long enough that it would have gone past when the runoff would normally be, which is December 4th. And then the courts are going to be very reluctant to order a different runoff than on December 4th. So it would have been, I thought honestly, and I was gonna come on here and tell you guys when we were preparing this earlier in the day, look, I want her to fight, and I wish they could make the case on voter suppression, but it's gonna be a really difficult case. But apparently they also came to that conclusion, and that's why she's conceded.
This is such a frustrating case because we know that voters were disenfranchised. We know that the rolls were purged, and Brian Kemp cheated, just flat out cheated as Secretary of State. And I wish the media had done a better job picking this story up earlier so she could have fought, with the attention of progressives and liberals nationwide. She could have fought earlier to get him to recuse himself, step down as Secretary of State. You can't, it's hard to fight after the fact. It's hard to fight after the election. And so this is devastating because this goes against democracy. Disenfranchising voters, taking away their ability to be part of the democratic process is just disgusting. And it shows you the lengths that Republicans will go to just to steal an election.
I wonder, now that this has happened, is there going to be a reform? Is there going to be laws that are going to be, put in place to prevent something like this from happening in the future? How does that go down?
So I have a definitive answer to that. In the state of Georgia, absolutely not, because the new governor will be Brian Kemp, the guy who cheated in the first place. So look, when we say cheat, the guy took off over 1 million people from the voter rolls in the last couple of years in his role of Secretary of State. He gets to do that, full well knowing he was going to run for governor. And it got worse and worse as it went on. About 350,000 people taken off in the last year, disproportionately Democratic voters, disproportionately African-American voters. And in the last batch that he disenfranchised, 70% of them were African-American. His opponent is African-American. It was outrageous. And so Anna's absolutely right. The press should have flipped out over that. How can you stay as Secretary of State and oversee your own election, especially as you're literally just saying all these people in one state, over 1 million people are now at a minimum have great difficulty voting, but most of them not allowed to vote. And so that's how you fix your own election. But now he's governor, so he's not going to fix anything. He's going to make it worse. So I hope the press in Georgia and the rest of the country are vigilant, because the guy's a well-known cheater. and he won by 0.2%, at least avoided the runoff by 0.2%. So the cheating totally worked.
Yes,
that's right.
And so what is he gonna learn from that? Sucker media. I just call them liberal bias, and they just heel at my boot, right? And the Democrats don't fight enough throughout, so I'm just gonna keep on cheating because it helped me win, and it definitively did. So look, last thing is, it's easy to get discouraged because Stacey Abrams was such a great progressive candidate, but keep a couple of things in mind, guys. And some of the big names on the progressive side lost in these elections, so it gives you a misleading sense of what happened. Remember, it's the state of Georgia. The fact that an African-American, really progressive candidate came within about a point of winning the governorship in the state of Georgia means the Republicans are in a world of trouble.
That's right.
So, I mean, they're this close to losing Georgia. What are they down to? Alabama and Mississippi, okay? And overall, this was, the election was not a tsunami, but it was definitely a wave. So I just want to give you context on that. Right now, the Democrats have already won 34 seats. They're slated to win, it looks like, because there's still some left undecided in the House, about 38. By the way, I predicted 38. Okay, so, and that's not why I brought it up, though. Okay, but I want to give you context.
I rolled my eyes when I was
That makes two of us.
Fair, okay. But to get to the point I wanted to make, Obama lost the 2014 election. Democrats lost 24 elections when 2014 when Obama was president. And the Republicans were like, oh, see that, the country hates him. It's a mandate. That's why we're gonna block a Supreme Court justice, et cetera. You know how many seats the Republicans picked up in that election? 13, that's it, 13. And Democrats here are gonna pick up about 38. Okay, and in 2006, Bush got slaughtered, and he stopped listening to Dick Cheney because it was that bad a loss. And he said,
Was he allowed to do that?
And he
to stop listening to Dick Cheney? Right?
Well, Dick Cheney didn't think so, and he said it was a thumping, and the whole press, oh my God, the Republicans got killed. You know how many seats they lost? 30. This time around, they lost 34 already, and likely 38. Okay, so this was a big win for the Democrats. And of course, today Trump's out going, we had an epic victory.
Epic victory, yeah.
But in Trump's mind, maybe he's right though, because he called 6 bankruptcies smart business. So maybe losing 38 seats is an epic victory to him. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.